They say that in Harlem, the only thing louder than a gunshot is the silence that follows a misfire. It was September 12, 1958. 300 people were packed into the Lenox Lounge, swaying to the rhythm of a saxophone that didn't know it was about to play a funeral march. At a corner table sat Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, the man who owned every brick and shadow from 110th Street to the Polo Grounds. Behind him stood Big Sam. For 5 years, Sam was Bumpy's shadow. His brother, but tonight, Sam was a man with 50,000 Italian reasons to commit treason. The barrel of the .38 was cold against the back of Bumpy's head. The air was thick. The world was about to change. The summer of 1958 was the hottest on record, but in the dark corridors of the Genovese crime family, things were turning ice cold. The prime minister of the mob, Frank Costello, was losing his grip, and the Mad Hatter, Albert Anastasia, had been gunned down in a barbershop chair just a year prior. The commission was restless. They wanted the one territory that remained a black box to the Italian Mafia, Harlem. But Harlem belonged to one man. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson wasn't just a racketeer, he was a scholar of the streets. He read Machiavelli in his jail cell and played chess in the park with a ferocity that terrified grandmasters. The Italians knew they couldn't outgun Bumpy in a street war. He had the people, the snipers on the rooftops, and the police in his pocket. To kill the King of Harlem, they needed a knife from the inside. They needed Big Sam. Sam was a giant of a man, standing 6'5" with hands the size of dinner plates. He had saved Bumpy's life during a botched robbery in 1954, taking a bullet to the shoulder. Since then he was Bumpy, brother. He had the keys to Bumpy's apartment at the 224 West 135th Street. He knew which side Bumpy slept on. He knew Bumpy's only weakness, his unwavering loyalty to his inner circle. The Genovese family approached Sam in a dim basement in East Harlem. They didn't lead with threats, they led with a suitcase containing $50,000 in non-sequential bills. Bumpy is an old man, Sam, the mobster whispered. He's a poet. The world is changing, it's moving toward heroin, and Bumpy is standing in the way of progress. Move him and this suitcase is just the down payment. You'll be the new king of the hill. Sam looked at the money. He thought about the 5 years he'd spent standing in the cold while Bumpy ate steak. The seeds of envy, watered by Italian gold, finally sprouted. September 12th arrived with a heavy humidity that made the neon lights of Lenox Avenue look blurred and ghostly. The Lenox Lounge was the crown jewel of Harlem nightlife. Its Zebra Room was the place where jazz legends like Miles Davis and Billie Holiday would wind down after a set. That night the lounge was over capacity. Over 300 people were packed in. The air was a thick cocktail of expensive perfume, pomade, and the smoky scent of the house special bourbon. Bumpy arrived at 10:45 p.m. He was dressed in a sharp midnight blue suit with a silk tie the color of a bruised plum. As always, Sam was 2 steps behind him. Bumpy greeted everyone. He shook hands with the janitors, he kissed the cheeks of the grandmothers, he nodded to the numbers runners. Bumpy took his seat at the booth in the far corner. This was his throne. From here he could see the front door and the kitchen exit, but tonight Bumpy did something strange. He asked the waiter to move the table. He turned his back to the room. Sam felt his heart hammering against his ribs. This was it. The Italians had told him, do it in public, make it a statement, let Harlem see their god bleed. At exactly 11:14 p.m., the band shifted into a slow, melancholy blues number. The saxophone wailed like a grieving widow. Sam stepped forward, his shadow fell across Bumpy's table. Bumpy didn't turn around, he was cutting a piece of steak, his movements slow and deliberate. Sam reached into his waistband and pulled out a heavy .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. The woman at the neighboring table saw the glint of the steel and let out a strangled gasp, but the music drowned her out. Sam leveled the barrel at the base of Bumpy's skull. The first click, Sam squeezed the trigger, the hammer fell, a sharp metallic snap echoed at the table. A misfire. Sam's eyes widened. He had cleaned this gun an hour ago, he had loaded it with fresh rounds. The second click, desperation took over. Sam's thumb cocked the hammer back again. He moved the gun closer until the cold metal was almost touching Bumpy's hair. He squeezed again, click, another dud. The silence that followed wasn't just in the room, it was in Sam's soul. He realized then that the man sitting in front of him wasn't a victim. Bumpy Johnson put down his knife and fork. He took a slow, methodical sip of his drink. He didn't look back yet. You know, Sam, Bumpy's voice was a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the floorboards. A man who buys a brother usually finds out he only rented a traitor. Bumpy finally turned. His eyes weren't filled with anger, they were filled with a terrifying, soulful pity. While Sam had been dreaming of the $50,000, Bumpy had been working. 3 days earlier, Bumpy, Birds, the street kids he paid to watch everyone, had seen Sam entering a social club in Little Italy. Bumpy didn't confront him. Instead, Bumpy went to see Lucille, Sam's longtime girlfriend. He didn't threaten her. He sat in her kitchen and showed her a photo of a woman in New Jersey, Sam's other woman, whom he was planning to run away with using the mob's money. Heartbroken and vengeful, Lucille did exactly what Bumpy asked. While Sam was in the shower that evening, she had opened his gun box. She didn't take the bullets. She took a needle and a tiny drill, deactivated the primers of every round in Sam's clip, and replaced them. Bumpy had sat in the Lenox Lounge for 2 hours, knowing a gun was pointed at his head, betting his entire life on the fact that he understood human nature better than Sam did. Bumpy stood up, he reached out and gently took the revolver from Sam's hand. Sam was paralyzed, his mouth hanging open, the $50,000 suitcase in his mind turning into a coffin. Bumpy emptied the useless lead onto the white tablecloth. Each clink of the dead bullet sounded like a gavel falling in a courtroom. "Go tell the Genovese boys that I'm keeping the gun," Bumpy said. "And tell them that if they want Harlem, they're going to have to come get it themselves. No more proxies, no more cowards." Bumpy walked out of the Lenox Lounge. He didn't run. He walked slowly under the streetlights, a king who had just looked death in the eye and watched death blink first. 2 hours later, in a basement on Mulberry Street, the heads of the 5 families gathered. The report had come back, the hit failed. Bumpy knew. He let the shooter live just to spite us. Vito Genovese threw a glass against the wall. "He's not a man," he roared. "He's a ghost." The commission made a decision that night. Harlem was off limits. They signed a non-aggression pact with Bumpy Johnson that lasted until his death in 1968. They realized that you can't defeat a man who has turned his own assassination into a theatrical performance. For 50 years, the old men on the benches of St. Nicholas Park have told this story. They talk about the night of the 2 clicks. It became a lesson in the streets of New York. Money can buy a gun and money can buy a finger to pull the trigger. But money can never buy the soul of Harlem. Big Sam disappeared that night. Some say he fled to the south, others say he's buried under the foundation of a tenement building. But Bumpy Johnson stayed. He stayed until the very end, eating his last meal at the Wells restaurant at 2 a.m., a man who lived by the sword but died by his own terms. The sound of that click didn't just save Bumpy's life. It changed the power structure of the American underworld forever. It proved that in the game of power, intelligence is the ultimate weapon and loyalty is the only shield that never breaks. Big Sam walked out into the night and vanished, becoming a ghost in a city that never forgets a face. Some say he fled south, others say he's buried under the foundation of a tenement. But Bumpy Johnson, he stayed. He finished his scotch, paid his tab, and walked out of the Lenox Lounge with the same measured pace he had walked in with. He didn't just survive an assassination, he orchestrated a masterpiece. That night, the 5 families didn't just fail to kill a man, they realized they were fighting a legend who had already written the ending to their story. They learned the hardest lesson the streets have to offer. You can buy a man's loyalty, but you can never buy a king's crown. Because in Harlem, even the bullets know who the boss is.